Phoenix shadow hides cold ice. Chapter 1 The dream of a woman dressed as a man. In Chang'an City, which was shrouded in fog in the early morning, Li Xian quietly changed into men's clothes and disguised himself as his younger brother Li Xian to participate in the scientific expedition. She is not an ordinary woman, but a talented woman from a famous family, and her younger brother in the family was unable to participate in the scientific examination for some reason, so she resolutely decided to replace her. In the examination room, Xian was calm and excellent in intelligence, and ranked among the best in 3 consecutive exams, and finally topped the list. After the exam, she said lightly to her friend, "It's just a palace exam, don't panic, it's not arranged." Unexpectedly, this scientific expedition would lead to changes in the Deep Palace. Chapter 2 The palace test encounters a change, and the hero rescues. On the day of the palace examination, the palace was in a state of panic. Prince Hung suddenly launched a coup, and his troops were at the gates of the city, with murderous intentions everywhere. Xian was in the palace, and when the palace change broke out, she accidentally saved the seriously injured old emperor. The old emperor was grateful, held her hand, and praised in his mouth, "Champion Bo is talented, wise, and brave, you will be the young master of the crown prince in the future." Facing the corpses of the rebels on the golden steps, and His Royal Highness the Prince, who was as cold as ice, he said secretly, "Your Majesty, you are clearly taking revenge." Chapter 3 The Legend of the Ice Prince. Crown Prince Xianqi was considered a sign of the country's demise since he was young. He was neglected from birth and sent to the bitter cold land in the far north to be left to live or die. Over the years, he has become a cold man who grinds in the ice and snow, with an indifferent personality, and all civil and military officials are jealous. After Xianqi returned to Beijing, the first major event was to cut off the tongue of the Qintian prison officer, showing that he would not tolerate any obstruction. Chapter 4 Young Master Plan, Transforming the Ice Prince. Xian was appointed as the young master of the Crown Prince and shouldered the heavy responsibility of the transformation plan. At first, the prince treated her coldly, and even humiliated her several times, but he did not hurry, and used wisdom and patience to melt the prince's coldness little by little. Gradually, the Crown Prince began to show tenderness, and he also showed the side of Corporal Lixian to the civil and military officials. Chapter 5 Warmth emerges, ambiguous sprouts. Xian observed that there was unspeakable loneliness and pain hidden between Xianqi's eyebrows. At a palace dance banquet, the two tacitly cooperated, and a trace of affection was born silently. Xian thought to herself, "This cold-hearted highness seems to be gradually softening in front of me." The prince changed his previous strictness and began to be willing to listen to the young master's advice, and the relationship between the two gradually became closer. Chapter 6 Misunderstanding and Temptation Behind the Screen. Once the prince accidentally bumped into Xian and his brother and friend talking secretly, and mistakenly thought that she had another secret. The relationship between the two is at an impasse, and Xian skillfully uses wit to resolve the misunderstanding. The prince began to question his feelings, and his heart was conflicted. Chapter 7 The Prince's Confession by the Window. One night, the prince held Xian against the window, his eyes deep, his fingers gently stroking the buttons on her neck, and whispered, "Master always advises me to treat others with courtesy. Today, I will definitely treat Master with courtesy." Xian's inner alarm bell rang loudly, and he secretly shouted that it was not good. "This is not the gift of the teacher at all, it is the gift of Yu Tao." She gritted her teeth and laughed at herself. "Don't panic, the fake phoenix is arranged." Chapter 8 The Dark Tide of Imperial Power and the Cruel Truth. Just as their feelings grow deeper, undercurrents surge within the palace, and Prince Heng's forces are ready to make a move, plotting a comeback. Xi Yan sensed the conspiracy and began to secretly plan to protect the safety of the crown prince and the royal family. She discovers that the mystery of the prince's origin is far more complicated than rumors, and is closely related to the upper echelons of the imperial court. Chapter 9 Fake Death and Rebirth, Mental Calculation. In order to protect himself and the prince, Xi Yan chose to fake his death in a conspiracy to create the illusion of his death. She lurks in the shadows, gathering evidence and preparing to uncover the truth behind it. When she stood in the corner of her self-mourning hall in plain clothes, and saw the prince caressing the coffin and spitting out blood, she felt deep panic and pain for the first time. Chapter 10 The prince is deeply in love and breaks the game with his hands. When the prince learned that the young master was still alive, his emotions turned from anger to sadness, and he made up his mind to expose the conspiracy in the court. Xian and the prince worked together to gradually disintegrate the power of King Hung through wisdom and courage. The prince transformed from an icy prince to a benevolent monarch, and the two worked together to create a new situation. Chapter 11 The Crown Prince ascends the throne, and the young master becomes the queen? With Prince Hung removed, Crown Prince Suankei was made emperor. Because of his outstanding achievements, Xian was canonized as the queen and became a strong backing for the auxiliary king. The two have experienced the baptism of thousands of sails emotionally, and finally achieved an imperial story. Chapter 12 The Phoenix Flies, and the Storm Rises Again. The Emperor and Empress work together to create a prosperous era, but a new crisis is quietly approaching. With the hidden enemies of the past revealed, the queen must once again show her wisdom and courage. She told the prince, "The situation in the world is like chess, the victory and the loss are undecided, and we should do it and cherish it." The story draws a temporary end in the magnificence, waiting for a new legend to unfold. Chapter 13 Undercurrents and the Queen's Emergence. The spring of the Yan dynasty should have been bright, but after he ascended the throne, he ushered in an unprecedented turmoil. In the depths of the court, the remnants of King Hung did not really die out, and secretly contacted in an attempt to set off a new round of rebellion. These people were so bold and reckless that they even threw heavy hidden arrows in the court, trying to win over civil and military officials and divide the relationship between the emperor and the queen. She knew that the crown prince was now the Emperor Xianqi, but he had just transformed into a benevolent monarch, and the ministers of the court were suspicious, and the old forces were secretly murderous. This is the moment when she flexes her wrists. One day, she gathered several cronies and held a banquet in the cold fragrance pavilion. During the banquet, she said in a graceful but dignified tone, "In the past, the flames of war were not something that could be shaken by the power of our royal family alone. Today, we must unite as one, promote good and suppress evil, and protect the peace of our country." Among the guests, there were many courtiers who had hidden thoughts, but their eyes were like torches, looking directly at everyone. That kind of aura that cannot be provoked makes hidden ambitions dare not act rashly. After the banquet, she secretly set up several lines of defense and sent loyal guards to monitor the movements in the court. However, the undercurrent is still bubbling up. A few days later, an urgent report came from outside the palace. Someone was trying to detonate explosives at the gate of the imperial city with the intention of assassinating the emperor. Unfortunately, he arranged guards to cover the emperor's evacuation as soon as possible, and he secretly infiltrated the scene of the crime and personally directed the collection of evidence. That night, she shuttled through the darkness and uncovered the truth behind the conspiracy with her loyal ministers. It was actually a distant relative of King Hung, who tried to seize power by taking advantage of the gap. On the way back to the palace, I looked back at the cold night, and a sense of determination surged in my heart. In order to protect this country, I must be stronger. The next day, Emperor Xianqi personally summoned her and whispered, "You are my solid support. From now on, we will protect this country and the people together." Xian smiled slightly, and secretly rejoiced in his heart, "This way, I finally have you with me." However, the gears of fate did not stop there. In the deep palace, the appearance of a mysterious woman stirred the hearts of the Queen Mother and the Queen. She brings with her past secrets and untold schemes to transform the palace once again. Whether they can work together to resist new threats and turn wind and rain into a rainbow depends on their wisdom and courage. Chapter 14 The Shadow of the Mysterious Woman. In late spring and early summer, the palace was full of flowers, but they could not conceal the surging undercurrents. A woman dressed in plain green clothes quietly entered the palace, named Shen Wanyao. She is mysterious, cold-tempered, low-key but scheming. Her appearance was like a cold wind, blowing the calm water surface of the palace. Xian was wary of her at first, but because of Shen Wanyao's prudence and talent, she had to be sent in to help deal with some government affairs. Unexpectedly, this seemingly cold woman quietly started her own chess game in the court. Shen Wanyao is burdened with an unspeakable past. She was originally an orphan of a wiped-out family in the distant frontier, and in order to avenge her family, she traveled thousands of miles to the imperial city, vowing to overthrow all this injustice. The relationship between Xian and Shen Wanyao is like a delicate dance, testing each other, hiding hostility and respect. This game of power and trust made the atmosphere of the entire court more and more tense. Chapter 15 The dark struggle rises to temperature, and danger lurks. Shen Wanyao began to gradually influence the government and make the old forces restless. She placed informants in the palace, obtained intelligence, and dismantled many rebellion plans in advance. Xian used this information to adjust his strategy and stabilize the imperial power. But the good times didn't last long, and late one night, Shen Wanyao suddenly disappeared. When the news came, Xian was shocked. Immediately, she ordered the secret agent to investigate the matter, and found that it was a kidnapping case carefully planned by the conservatives in the palace, intending to force Xian to abdicate. Xian knew the black hand behind him and was determined to fight back. She united with Emperor Suankei and used law and power to bring a group of traitors to justice. At the same time, she announced the secret of her disguised as a man to participate in the scientific examination in the palace, which shocked the government and the public, but also won more support and respect. In the process, Xianqi became more and more dependent on the wisdom of Xi Yan, and the relationship between the two became deeper and deeper, and it was rumored in the court that they were two hearts of ice and fire, complementing each other as kings. Chapter 16 Prelude to the End. Just as the situation seems to be stabilizing, an even larger conspiracy is brewing. The alliance of frontier tribes in the distance is ready to move, ready to take advantage of the situation and threaten the central plains. Even more disturbing is the emergence of new enigmatic figures around the emperor, who seem to have ties to hostile forces. Xi Yan sensed the crisis behind this and decided to personally lead his troops to the frontier to inspect. She was dressed in a military uniform, and her aura was magnificent, like the god of war descending. Prince Suankei also firmly stated that he would accompany him and face external troubles together. On the eve of departure, Xian earnestly admonished the courtiers in front of the palace. Every citizen has a share of responsibility for the fate of a country. I hope you will all work together to protect the country and not let internal and external troubles invade at the same time. As soon as these words came out, the government and the opposition shook, and the line between loyalty and betrayal became even more blurred. The storm of the dark tide has inevitably swept towards them. Chapter 17 The Beacon of the Border, the Eve of the Decisive Battle. Xi Yan and Emperor Xianqi led the elite army to the frontier town, Hanliang Pass. This is the dividing line between the central plains and the northern barbarians, and it has always been a battleground for soldiers. In the barracks, the cold wind howled and the banners hunted. Dressed in armor and with a resolute gaze, she knew that this war would determine the survival of the dynasty. In the middle of the day and night, in the camp tent, Xianqi quietly approached Xian. The two looked at each other speechlessly, but they saw the same determination and reluctance in each other's eyes. Tomorrow we will have a decisive battle. No matter life or death, I am willing to go with you. Xianqi whispered. Xi Yan smiled and replied firmly, life and death are determined by fate, but I am willing to spend my whole life to protect you and this country. The two joined hands and were extremely determined in the upcoming test of life and death. Chapter 18 A Life and Death Battle, the truth is revealed. Dawn broke, and the armies of the two sides met outside the Cold Ridge Pass. Helianling, the leader of the northern barbarians, led the crowd with great momentum and vowed to break through the central plains defense line in one fell swoop. The drums of war are thundering, and the soldiers are pointing at them. Xian planned carefully, using the terrain and the surprise troops to catch Helianling off guard. Emperor Suankei personally led the troops to charge into battle, showing great bravery. In the midst of the fierce battle, Shen Wanyao suddenly appeared on the battlefield, and she brought key information to expose the conspiracy of the northern barbarians and some ministers of the court. The news was like a sharp blade that pierced the last cover of the mutineers. Under the joint attack of Xian and Suankei, Helianling was finally defeated and peace was restored to the northern border. After the war, the imperial court launched a great purge, completely eliminated the internal traitors, and the court restored order. Chapter 19, Palace Storm, True Feelings Revealed. After returning to the capital, Xian and Suankei were praised by the court and the public as the backbone of the country. The emperor gave Xian the title of Mother of the Country and officially canonized her as the Empress. However, as a woman dressed as a man, this glory was not easy to come by. At a grand court meeting, Xian did not shy away from telling his identity and passed to the ministers, and won the admiration and trust of civil and military officials. Xianche held her hand and said to the ministers, "The queen's intelligence is the greatest luck in my dynasty." Xian smiled, tears in her eyes, "I wish to protect the country with the emperor and create a peaceful and prosperous world together." The two looked at each other and smiled, and the court was filled with rare harmony and warmth. Chapter 20, Fate Strikes, Endings, and New Chapters. Many years later, Xian and Suankei worked together to govern the world, and people's livelihood is stable and peaceful. Because of her talent and hard work, her younger brother won the first prize in the imperial examination and entered the imperial court, and the glory of the family was restored. Shen Wanyao became Xian's cronies and assisted her in handling political affairs, and the two had a deep friendship. One night, I stared at the starry sky with a lot of thoughts. Looking back on the twists and turns and challenges in the past, she was full of emotion. Life is like a play, with twists and turns, but as long as there is light in the heart, it can eventually be broken. Xianche gently held her hand and whispered, "With you by your side, I am not afraid of wind and rain." The camera zooms out, and the two stand side by side, with the rich and powerful country and thriving people behind them, symbolizing the successful conclusion of a legend and heralding a new chapter of infinite possibilities in the future.